So let's get more from an analyst perspective here. We're joined by David Swartz of Morningstar Research Services. David, thanks very much indeed for joining us. What was your reaction when you heard the CEO is parting from Lululemon? Were you surprised?
Yeah, I was surprised because Callum McDonald has been in place over 7 years, and there was no real indication that he was leaving. However, Lululemon has had a couple of tough years, and so that often will lead to a CEO change, and that's what we're seeing now. I do think that it's unfortunate that he's leaving in this way, especially with no clear succession plan in place. But sometimes a company needs a change, and Lululemon is in that place right now.
What do you think there's a prospect for a turnaround in this stock? I mean, it's up today, but still, if we look at a one-year chart, still dismal performance over the past 12 months.
Yes, I do. My fair value estimate before yesterday was $295. So I've actually thought it was undervalued at the recent prices. Mm-hmm. There was a time when I thought it was very overvalued when the stock was at its all-time high. But I do think that the decline has been overdone in that Lululemon does have an opportunity to turn around. The company is, despite its problems, the company still has great margins and high growth compared to most other apparel retailers. Most companies would love to have Lululemon's results, but they're only really poor by Lululemon's very high standards of its own past. But Lululemon is still a very strong company, very strong brand with high margins and high international growth. Certainly, its growth in North America has slowed considerably, and that's been the main issue. And that was somewhat predictable because Lululemon is a much bigger company than it used to be. Right. And so there just aren't as many opportunities for new stores and for expansion in the U.S. and Canada.
They really are huge. I mean, you have been forecasting revenue of more than $10 billion U.S. this year.
Yeah, this is a much bigger company than it used to be. So obviously it gets harder when you reach that level of size because, every metro area now in the U.S. and Canada has multiple Lululemon stores. And so there just aren't as many growth opportunities there. But Lululemon still has a lot of opportunities internationally. It's opening stores aggressively in China, and the China sales that were reported yesterday were very strong, up 46% in the quarter.
Wow.
And potentially Lululemon could be opening stores in China for many years, because if you look at competitors like Nike and Adidas, they have thousands of stores in China, most of which are franchised. Lululemon is still small compared to that. And then there's a lot of other areas like in Europe and many countries in Western Europe, Lululemon only has a small number of stores. So there certainly could be opportunities to open stores there in other parts of the world as well. And then there's also expansion opportunities in terms of product. Lululemon, you just talked about Lululemon's growth in the men's area. It's still smaller than women's, even though we know that men spend more money than women on sportswear. So over time, the men's business could get much larger. Also, footwear remains to be seen if it's going to really work for Lululemon, but it is a big opportunity because really this athletic market is really driven by footwear, and Lululemon only has very small sales in that area. So there's a lot of opportunities still for Lululemon to become a bigger company, even bigger than it is now.
And you think the company could end up this year buying back about $1.1 billion US in stock?
Yeah, Lululemon has an extremely strong balance sheet with no debt and $1 billion in cash. So, and Lululemon generates tremendous cash flow. So the company has plenty of capacity to buy back stock, and announced yesterday that it was increasing its authorized stock buyback by another $1 billion. So, and I do think that stock buybacks are accretive at this price, and so it makes a lot of sense for Lululemon to be buying back stock aggressively. In the past, it perhaps has bought back stock at extreme prices, which maybe was not so great for shareholders. But right now, I think that Lululemon is doing the right thing by aggressively buying back stock.
And of course, Callum McDonald is exiting as CEO after a rough patch, but you say over the years he's achieved tremendous growth in sales?
Well, yeah, Lululemon has had its best years ever since he became the CEO. Maybe that would have happened under a different CEO. That's very possible. But I have to give him a lot of credit because for many years, Lululemon was very successful while he was guiding the company. The last couple of years have become more difficult. The company's had a number of product misses. They've had some merchandising issues where some product got to be too stale, and they've had some issues with sizing and color and things like that. There has been turnover in the design part of Lululemon. They lost their chief designer who went to Vans last year, and that's been a big problem. So that there have been some issues in the last couple of years that led to him leaving the company. But overall, you have to say he's been a very successful CEO at Lululemon. The company is much bigger now than it was when he came in, and their international expansion is really progressing well.
It's interesting. China is about 18% of their total sales. And as you say, that's a vast market, and they still seem to have momentum there.
Yeah, I mean, potentially Lululemon could be growing in China for many, many years. Yoga is big there. There's growing interest in sportswear in China. For example, marathons in China now become huge. Thousands and thousands of people run marathons in China. All this has really been happening just in the last several years. It's really growing rapidly, and Lululemon is in position to grow there. There isn't as much competition as there is in Europe and North America and China, and so there is a lot of potential there for it to be seen as a luxury brand, just as it is in the United States.
The Randall Koenig is an analyst at Jefferies who has been a long-time skeptic. He's now gone to a hold today. He says, this could point to a change, but he reckons that things could get worse before they get better, that Lulu still has a lot of things to work out. So could this be a bumpy stock to hold for the next while?
The fourth quarter that we're in right now is likely to be kind of a difficult one, and probably there's going to be some slowness into 2026 as well. In my model, I really have the turnaround coming in 2027 and 2028, when Lululemon will have a lot of new products on the market, and they will have sold through a lot of the older products that right now they're having to discount to really move. So that will take time. Turnarounds in this industry do not happen overnight. They often will take 2+ years. But I definitely think that Lululemon can do it. The company's brand, I think, is still very popular. And I think that their customers will come back when Lululemon gives them products that they want to buy.
Would they be better to maybe just say the heck with it and get out of things like footwear or pull back in men's?
No, I don't think so at all, because I think there's really an opportunity there. If you look at other sportswear companies, they're really driven by footwear. So Lululemon is primarily an apparel company that only sells a small number of shoes, but potentially that could be a much larger business. There's no reason to think that it couldn't be. We've seen other shoe companies in recent years, like On and Hoka, that have come on very strong in a relatively short period of time. So, if they can do it, then so can Lululemon. It's a very large market, and there's plenty of room for many successful companies in that space.
Thank you very much, David, as ever.
Thank you.
David Swartz of Morningstar.